If you are not bold from the very first thought, you've already lost before you begin. This is not your typical startup tutorial video. This is a mind map for the ambitious who want to redesign how the world operates. You will not just learn how to build a company, but how to build an empire. A journey from hiring people as if activating collective intelligence to distributing ownership like the art of attracting the soul of the organization. Every decision, every conversation, every pivot carries the weight of shaping the future. Watch this entire video. You need to be ready to change your destiny. And every revolution in thinking begins from a single point. What are you bold enough to think about from day one? Part 1. Origin mindset and vision leverage. Every great creation journey begins with a punch to the limits of thinking. If your aim is merely a few $1 million, then you'll design everything just to survive. But when your vision stretches to billions, you start shaping an organization capable of conquering the world. From how you select people, build structures, to even the very first behaviors, everything is aligned with the blueprint of an empire. Thinking big is not daydreaming. It is the only way to create a truly significant impact. The difference doesn't lie in the first product you create. It lies in how you envision the future you want to build. If you start with a small goal, you'll attract small people, shallow thinking, and short bursts of energy. But when you aim to build an empire that transforms an industry, you instantly generate a gravitational pull for the most exceptional individuals. They aren't drawn by jobs. They seek out wild dreams with the potential to become reality. The starting point is the blueprint of the organization's destiny. The founder's mindset is like the operating system of the company. Every line of cultural, strategic, and operational code will be written based on that original OS version. A small thinker cannot unexpectedly build something grand. Small dreams only produce cycles of short-term optimization, while a big vision compels you to establish a structure that can withstand crises and scale globally. This mindset also determines the quality of problems you dare to tackle from day one. No model is good enough if it starts from a mindset of limitation. Great models are born from big questions. Builders don't ask, "How do we survive?" They ask, "How do we dominate, set new industry standards, and reshape social behavior?" The question determines the answer. Mindset defines magnitude, and from your very first meetings, first pitches, and first emails, you are planting the seeds of a path. Will it be a beaten trail or a grand avenue? It all begins in thought. If you only prepare for the product lifecycle, you won't survive the company lifecycle. Greatness does not lie in detailed planning, but in the ability to see ahead, sense trends, and place early bets. Long-term thinking is not for the timid. It requires those willing to sacrifice present comfort to buy the chance to make history. Anyone who begins with a just enough to survive mindset will never lead a journey big enough to change the world. Greatness is a conscious choice. When you think like a game changer, you will attract people like you, those who refuse to settle for normalcy. The key is, you don't need to know everything from the start, but you must be willing to ask the questions others avoid. This mindset defines you as someone willing to enter uncharted territory. Every step you take maps the way for those who follow, and if you don't lead with vision, you'll be swept into someone else's dream. Vision is not just a slogan. It's a personal vow that you won't quit when things get vague and chaotic. It is the compass guiding every single action. When you have nothing else, vision is the only thing you own, and it's what will lead you to the right people, the right opportunities, and ultimately, real impact. Those without a strong vision will always be defeated by reality. Those who possess it will bend reality to their will. The journey to building a great company begins with a seemingly paradoxical act, thinking big when you have nothing. But that's the formula, because when you think big, you force yourself to act like someone responsible for the future, not just the present. Vision is a self-imposed commitment at the mission level. And if you don't dare tie yourself to a grand future, you'll forever live in a small present. Million-dollar companies are run by million-dollar mindsets. Billion-dollar ones are not. Bold thinking creates the space for innovative action. The irony is, the bigger your dream, the more easily you attract resources. Investors, talent, media, all crave a grand story to be part of. Thinking big doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you more magnetic. And this doesn't come from skills, but from an unshakable belief in a future you see clearly, even when others don't. This is the starting point of true leadership. In summary, if you're truly serious about the startup journey, you are not allowed to think small. Mindset is your first and most important asset. It governs everything you'll do next. Don't wait until you have a product to think big. Start with the big dream, then design the path. And if you do it right, you won't just launch a company. You'll initiate a new ecosystem, a new movement, a new future for an industry. That is the right way to think from the very beginning. Part 2. Solid vision, flexible tactics. The path to the summit is never a straight line. Vision is the mountain peak, but the road upward is winding, ever-changing and filled with challenges. What matters most is holding the vision like a lighthouse, while allowing tactics to be fluid like water. The wise do not cling to methods, they cling to the goal. Every tactical shift is a course correction. But without a clear vision, you'll get lost in a forest of tactics. Many companies fail not from lack of revenue, but because their tactics lead them astray from the original vision. They win short-term battles, but set up camp in the wrong place, where they can no longer ascend. Revenue is necessary, but revenue does not define the destination. You may make $20 million, but be stuck with no path to $1 billion. The scariest thing isn't a lack of growth, it's growing in the wrong direction. That is the trap of short-term tactics. Tactics should be like sails in the wind, able to shift with conditions, but always aimed toward the destination. Vision is the compass, and great leaders clearly distinguish what can be flexible and what cannot. A good tactic is not the most efficient one today, but the right one for the current phase, suited to available resources and open to future possibilities. A tactical decision should never close the door to strategic ones. This is the art of yielding a step to win the war. Flexible thinking is the most powerful weapon in a fast-changing environment. But without a core vision, flexibility becomes a double-edged sword, leading the organization astray. The truth is, every startup will need to change its original plan. But the difference between success and failure lies in what they change and what they preserve. Survivors are those who hold on to their why, even if they must change everything about the how. That is the courage to maintain vision amidst murky reality. One of the most important abilities is strategic detour. Sometimes you must retreat, shift direction, or even act against your core instincts, so long as you don't lose sight of the long-term vision. Tactical rigidity signals fear, not determination. Great leaders are like long-term architects, always clear about what they are building, even when they're just digging the foundation. They don't let circumstances dictate the goal. You must clearly distinguish winning from getting closer to the summit. Some early victories actually pull you further from your end goal. Sometimes refusing an attractive opportunity is necessary to stay on course. Not every chance to make money is a chance to build vision. Pitching camp in the wrong place means you may never climb higher. Visionary leaders evaluate every decision with the question, does this bring me closer or farther from my original goal? That's how you maintain vision with every step. Success in startups doesn't come from absolute intelligence. It comes from the ability to continuously adjust without losing direction. Every tactical failure is an opportunity to recalibrate your internal compass. But if there's no preset destination, every adjustment becomes meaningless. This is why many companies keep pivoting without going anywhere. They move a lot, but make no progress. Without a compass, every step leads further adrift. With vision, every mistake becomes a valuable lesson. In summary, holding firm to your vision while staying tactically flexible is the creator's highest art. It's how you survive chaotic reality while still advancing on the big path. It's how you turn small failures into stepping stones for great success. And it's how you inspire your team, by showing them that even if we change course, we are still moving forward. Don't let short-term tactics make you forget why you started. Vision is the one thing that must never waver. Part 3. The founding team, the strategic cabinet. No great company survives on ideas alone. Ideas are seeds, but for seeds to grow into forests, they need an ecosystem, and that is the founding team. The first people are not just teammates, they are extended embodiments of the founding mindset. They don't just execute, they shape. They don't just work, they establish culture. They don't wait for direction, they co-create the path. The founding team is the foundation where every future decision will firmly take root. The strategic cabinet is not an administrative group. It's the team you call at 3 a.m. when the company faces a life or death decision. They don't work for a paycheck. They work for a shared vision. They stake their reputation, intellect, and soul. They are the ones who venture into uncharted territories with you, and they are the ones who help you navigate the deadliest turns of startup life. Each member is a crucial link in the chain that defines the direction of the entire journey. Your first hires are not there to fill a position, but to deepen strategic thinking. The right person is someone who can say no, ask tough questions, and challenge old assumptions. If you are the only one holding the vision, the company will be weak. But if the whole team aligns, debates, and takes responsibility together, you lay the groundwork for an unshakable culture. The founding team is the immune system that guards against vision drift. A strong team doesn't mean everyone is the same. On the contrary, diversity of experience and thinking creates a deep architecture of thought. What matters is that everyone shares a vision, but is willing to examine it from different angles. One person worries about engineering, another sees from a market lens, yet another questions the ethics. When these three dimensions converge, the company gains strategic depth, not just a room echoing its own thoughts. Hiring the wrong person early on is as dangerous as laying the first brick of a bridge in the wrong place. The bridge will collapse, and when it does, it won't be because of the wind, but because the foundation was misaligned. That's why founders must never compromise on early people decisions. Don't hire for now under deadline pressure. Your first hires set the tempo for the entire orchestra. They don't just bring skills, they define what your company considers right, wrong, and unacceptable. An ideal founding member isn't just technically skilled, they have a systems mindset. They don't ask, how do I complete this task? They ask, why was the system designed this way to begin with? They don't accept reality as it is, they see it as raw material for improvement. These people are not bound by roles. They transcend titles, connect scattered dots across the organization, and inject the power of restructuring. They don't just contribute, they redefine how the organization thinks as a whole. Don't mistake a strong team for one without arguments. On the contrary, fierce debate is a sign of collective intelligence at work. But such debate must be grounded in trust and loyalty to the vision. In that environment, people aren't afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of not saying what's right. It is through intellectual confrontations that plans get refined, risks are preempted, and the best solutions emerge. Smart disagreement is a strategic weapon, not a distraction. Hiring the right people is not enough. You must build a psychological safe space where they can speak their minds without fear of judgment. A great founding team is one where everyone feels they have the right and responsibility to shape the organization's future. They don't just get to contribute, they must contribute. This culture doesn't come from training programs, it is seeded by the first founder. If you do it right, you won't need to manage, you'll just need to listen. Because the team will lead you in the right direction. A company doesn't need many people, just the right ones. And the right people don't come from shiny resumes, they come from a mindset that's willing to share risk. They see the company's failure as their own. They invest not with money, but with reputation, life energy, and professional credibility. And only when you give them a big enough vision, a worthy position, and a voice that truly matters, will they choose to walk beside you. Talented people don't lack opportunities. They lack reasons to give up the others. The founding team doesn't have to be the smartest people, but they must be the right ones. Right for the mission, for the stage, and for the ambiguity the company is about to face. They must have the grit to handle pressure, the ability to learn continuously, and above all, the humility to keep learning, and the moral courage to speak up when the company veers off course. They are the intellectual and emotional foundation of the organization. They cannot be ordinary people. In summary, a founding team is not just a group working together. They are the living manifesto of the company's values. They embody the original spirit, the first echo of the mission. They define who we are. They determine how fast you move, how far you go, and how long you'll last when storms hit. If you build the wrong team, everything else will go wrong. But if you build the right team, everything else can be fixed. The founding team is the first multiplier. A mistake here is a mistake forever. That's why the founding team cannot be the result of coincidence. It must be the product of supreme hiring strategy. You need people who are both courageous and humble, independent yet collaborative, far-sighted yet ready to dive into specifics. They are the ones who write the first chapter, witness the formation, and stand as the pillars that won't break in a storm. Building the strategic cabinet is not optional. It is the responsibility of a true leader. Part 4, Irrational Thinking, the engine of breakthroughs. Breakthroughs are never born from logic. Everything logical has already been thought of by someone else. Only irrationally logical ideas open the door to real creativity. Ordinary people ask, is this doable? Innovators ask, why not? The difference lies not in the ability to analyze logically, but in the courage to accept something that has never existed. World changers don't live by calculations, they live by redefining the frame of reference. Irrational thinking is the foundation of the future. Most educational and societal systems train people to be rational, safe, and predictable. But true innovation requires the unusual, those who dare to think the unthinkable, act when no one else believes. They don't fear being wrong, they fear being made average. When you allow yourself to abandon conventional thinking, you open the door to solutions never found in books. At that point, you're no longer optimizing a system, you're rewriting it from scratch. That's the power of the irrational. Irrational thinking isn't stupidity. It's logic that doesn't fit the present, but is perfectly aligned with the future. Like investing in something that doesn't yet have a market. Like designing a product for a behavior that hasn't formed. Like building a team before knowing exactly what the product is. All of these are irrational by conventional standards. But these irrational choices create new ecosystems, industries, and ways of life. The average person sees instability. The pioneer sees opportunity. Irrational thinking is a synthesis of strong intuition, deep experience, and refusal to accept current limitations. You need enough data to avoid blindness, but enough courage to act before the data is complete. This mindset lets you move ahead of the market. You don't ask what the customer wants, you guide them to want what they've never imagined. And when it materializes, the world looks back and calls you a genius. But really, you're just the one who believed in what no one else had yet seen clearly. Most companies stop at being good because they optimize what exists, rather than bravely dismantle it. Irrational thinking asks, if I were starting from scratch, what would I do differently? Even when your current system is functioning well, it's the habit of someone who's never satisfied with current success. No one disrupts by preserving the old. Every time you choose comfort over risk, you trade away the future to keep a temporarily stable present. Those with irrational thinking don't fear breaking existing structures. They know that every working system hides an approaching obsolescence. They act before the market forces them to. They set trends rather than chase them. And they don't wait for others to validate what they believe is true. They'll walk alone if needed, because they know the result will reshape the game. It's not madness, it's intentional revolution. It's the behavior of a future maker, not just a present reactor. Irrational thinking needs nurturing. If you are the leader, create space for the crazy-sounding questions. Let your team feel safe thinking differently, proposing the unconventional. The biggest ideas often start with skeptical looks, but if you shut them down early, you'll stay stuck in linear thinking loops. Great organizations treat the irrational as seeds of breakthrough. Every rule eventually is rewritten. In conclusion, irrational thinking is an essential ingredient in the formula for true breakthroughs. It is the key that unlocks mental limits. It demands courage, persistence, and belief in the unproven. But it has birthed new industries, redefined social norms, and led people into the future. If you reject the irrational, you also reject the right to create the unprecedented. Don't optimize reality. Redesign it. Part 5. The Art of Choosing Advice and the Weight of Belief. In startups, the danger isn't a lack of advice, it's having too much of the wrong kind. Everyone wants to offer opinions, but you must understand that not everyone deserves to be heard. Advice is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate the path or mislead you if your trust is misplaced. The hardest part isn't choosing the right advice. It's knowing who to trust, when, and under what circumstances. The ability to filter noise is a strategic survival skill. When you have nothing, everyone thinks they understand you better than you understand yourself. They'll suggest easier, more familiar, safer paths. But that advice isn't based on the vision you carry. They can't see what you're trying to create. That's why you can't evaluate advice based solely on logic. You must trace its source. What has this person experienced? What mistakes have they made? What battles have they survived? If they haven't lived through the trenches, they can't guide you through them. Advice should not be treated as an answer. It is data and you are the processor. The right question is, has this person made decisions in a similar situation before? If the answer is no, listen for perspective, not direction. The truth is, bad advice from someone with influence is more dangerous than a bad idea from an average colleague. So be extremely cautious about who you allow to influence your decisions. No one should be trusted by default. A common mistake is assuming that experience always equals decision-making wisdom. But if that experience comes from a different environment, problem, or scale, it might lead you astray. For example, someone who's done marketing at a large, process-driven corporation won't offer the right advice to a startup with no customers. Experience is only useful when the context is compatible. Otherwise, it backfires, turning you into a warped replica of an outdated model. A great founder doesn't seek consensus. They seek contrast. They don't ask, who said this is right, but what gives this person the right to say it's right? This is how you maintain clarity amidst conflicting information. Treat advice as a hypothesis, not a truth. Every major decision should be examined from multiple angles, but ultimately must be the product of independent thinking. In a world full of opinions, those who retain the right to think for themselves hold true power. Learn to reverse the question, what is this advice not saying? Sometimes the danger lies not in what's said, but in what's left out. An investor might tell you to optimize burn rate, but never mention learning speed. A mentor may push you to launch quickly, but miss how it affects long-term trust. Wisdom isn't in hearing more, it's in seeing through the gaps in what's said. Often, the unspoken matters more than the spoken. In the ambiguous world of startups, the best advice comes from those who have made decisions under uncertainty, high pressure, and real consequences. They know that sometimes right is only proven 6 months later. They understand the solitude of believing in yourself when everyone else disagrees. That's why their words carry true empathy. This isn't theory. It's blood and tears distilled into wisdom. Listen to those who've been hurt in exactly the places you're about to go. In summary, the art of choosing advice is a survival skill. You don't need many advisors, you need the right ones. Build a belief map. Who you trust, in what area, during what phase, and at what decision level. Don't let someone advise your long-term strategy just because they once built a small product. Conversely, don't ignore an outsider's view if it helps you ask the right questions. Be discerning, adaptable, and absolutely independent in your thinking, because no one is responsible for your company but you. Part 6. Adaptation speed, the survival metric. In the startup world, plans never survive reality. So the most important thing isn't how well you plan, but how fast you adapt. Adaptation speed is the survival metric. A team that adapts quickly can survive even if it starts off wrong. But a team rigidly clinging to an old plan will slowly die from arrogance. Adaptation isn't surrender. It's the behavior of those who respect reality, but do not submit to it. Those who dare to adjust quickly are the ones who go far. Adaptation doesn't mean constant idea hopping. It's a process of intentional learning. Successful people don't change to chase trends. They change to find the common thread between vision and market feedback. They understand that every reaction is data, but not all data requires immediate action. The key is to learn the right thing at the right time without losing identity. A great team is one that isn't afraid to revise the plan, but fiercely protects the vision. A team's learning speed is shown in 3 ways: how often they revise the model, how deeply they change, and how quickly they act. Outstanding teams learn in real time. They don't wait for quarterly reviews to shift direction. They sense weak signals and act immediately. This requires a culture of quick reflexes. No blame, no delays. Every member is like a sensor, constantly reading reality and feeding it back. Fast learning is an evolutionary reflex. A great founder always watches whether the team is evolving. You don't need a perfect plan. You need an organization that self-adjusts. The question isn't, are we right? But how fast are we learning? The faster the learning, the shorter the time spent being wrong, and the lighter the consequences. Slow learning organizations prolong mistakes and burn out. Instead of finding the most skilled people, find the fastest learners. Learning is the only lasting competitive advantage. Adaptation speed comes from first principles thinking. Instead of copying existing models, smart people ask, if I weren't limited by habits, how would I redesign this? That thinking leads to real breakthroughs, but it requires unlearning old paths, challenging every assumption, and rebuilding from the ground up. First principles thinkers aren't trapped by experience. They don't ask what's working, they ask what is fundamentally necessary. They learn like beginners, every day. Rapid change only happens when the team doesn't attach ego to the old plan. A truly confident team isn't ashamed to admit mistakes. They see errors as tuition for deeper learning, and that mindset gives them the ability to restructure without panic. They are anchored to outcomes, not fixed methods. Mental flexibility comes from goal stability. Every adjustment doesn't disorient them, it shortens the path to success. A highly adaptable company has short learning cycles and fast improvement loops. This creates a compounding effect. Each week, they get better. Each month, they leap forward. And in just 1 year, they leave competitors behind, even if they started later. The question is no longer who's smarter, but who learns faster. In this race, the flexible win, not the strong. Winners aren't those who were right from the start, but those who fix their mistakes the quickest. In conclusion, adaptability is the most important metric for evaluating a startup's survival. Hire people who learn fast. Design rapid feedback loops. Treat every change as an evolution opportunity. Don't be loyal to the old plan. Be loyal to the goal. And most importantly, turn your organization into a perpetual learning machine, because the world never stands still. If you don't learn faster than the pace of change, you'll be eliminated. Innovation must be a reflex, not a campaign. Part 7. Hiring for cross-impact, not for title. Hiring isn't about filling boxes on an org chart. It's about shaping thinking, spreading influence, and accelerating evolution. A breakthrough organization doesn't hire for vacant roles. It hires for strategic gaps. The question isn't, who are we missing, but what do we need to activate? A great hire doesn't just contribute to their own department, they make other departments smarter. That's called hiring for cross-impact, not function. A hallmark of nonlinear hiring is asking, who will this person make better? If someone is only good independently, it's not enough. They must be able to ask questions that clarify others' thinking. They must deepen internal dialogue. In old-style organizations, hiring adds gears. In modern ones, hiring completes the circuit. The right person will illuminate the whole system. This is the art of triggering breakthroughs, not through resources, but through influence structure. Hiring by title leads to an organization full of roles but lacking spark. You might have a CMO but no marketing breakthrough, a CTO but no tech innovation. In contrast, if you hire someone for how they think and question systems, you gain a cross-disciplinary energy source. They move the entire company forward, not just their department. This is the difference between those who work and those who create change. Your organization needs more of the latter. One of the most important interview questions is, if you were the CEO of this company, what would you change? That question unlocks strategic thinking beyond role boundaries. You're not looking for someone who can do a job well. You want someone who understands the whole. Someone who thinks about structure, culture, and long-term strategy. Someone like that won't get stuck in a silo. They work like architects, not technicians. That's who you need in early stages. Breakthrough hiring requires founders to abandon the trap of psychological safety. Many hire with the mindset, as long as this person doesn't disrupt our current system. But that thinking leads to stagnation. Talented people often make others uncomfortable at first. They ask questions that force the team to rethink. They challenge without fear of offending. And that's what drives true evolution. Hiring great people means accepting turbulence in exchange for growth. Hiring for cross-impact doesn't mean abandoning expertise. On the contrary, expertise is the minimum requirement. But what matters is their ability to intersect. Between strategy and execution. Between people and systems. Between what's right and what's new. These people are catalysts. They don't just solve problems, they reshape how problems are perceived. They trigger chain reactions in culture, values, and learning capability. They are contagious flames. A breakthrough company needs people who can design organizations, not just products. These are people who ask, why aren't Team A and Team B talking? How can the CEO communicate better with engineers? Why do our top people leave? They see the company as a living prototype, always subject to improvement. They don't accept the status quo as optimal. And they are the ones who turn the company into a learning machine, not just an operating one. In summary, hiring for cross-impact is a strategic act. It's how you generate internal momentum, create a culture of constructive friction, and strengthen adaptability. A great hire doesn't just do their job well, they elevate the whole organization. And a great founder is someone who recognizes who's doing that, even before they carry a title. Hiring the right person is pre-writing the chapter of success. Hiring the wrong one is setting up failure. Hire for impact, not for titles. Remember, the organization you're building is not a corporate clone. It's a living organism, growing in the direction you define. Every early hire is a strand of DNA that will replicate across the system. So don't weaken your immune system by hiring someone merely okay. Hire people who make the whole system stronger. Hiring is about shaping essence, not adding skills. When you hire right, you don't just get tasks done, you shape destiny. Part 8, Equity Sharing Mechanism, a strategy to attract the soul of the organization. Equity is not just a financial reward, it's a commitment, a vote of confidence, a voice. In the early days of a startup, you have no money, no reputation, no guarantees. The only thing you have is vision and the ability to share it. Equity is how you invite others to help write the story. When someone holds equity, they don't just work, they fight. They don't just contribute, they invest their soul. That's the difference between an employee and a true co-founder. A common mistake is hoarding too much equity for founders, with the false belief that power comes from total ownership. True power comes from building a team with collective strength. You alone cannot create something great. The early teammates must share not only the vision, but also the long-term rewards. If they're talented, they could start something on their own. If they choose you, give them a reason to stay. Through fairness and strategic generosity, equity signals who you value. Someone given 0.1% will not think like someone given 5%. This affects not just motivation, but how they perceive their role. Large shareholders act like owners. They think further ahead, challenge ideas more strongly, and embrace hard decisions. Conversely, if you keep too much for yourself, you're silently saying, I trust myself more than all of you. That kills resonance. Sharing equity is a long-term strategy. It lets you trade a small piece of ownership for a huge amount of motivation. Great companies aren't built through total control. They're built through wholehearted partnership. Talented people need to feel they're an irreplaceable part of the victory. They're willing to sacrifice high pay, safety, and personal time for the feeling that they're building something meaningful. Equity is an invitation to co-create the impossible. Don't let investors pressure you into a small option pool just to preserve short-term value. A company without a soul is worthless, no matter how big the pool. On the other hand, a company full of people willing to die for the dream will multiply its value. Think big about the option pool the way you think big about your vision. See it as how you pay in belief. And if you're right, they will repay you in talent, loyalty, and an unbeatable culture. A person with enough equity becomes a talent magnet. They help you recruit others with just their personal credibility. They spread belief in the company like wildfire. This is a domino effect in hiring and culture that money can't buy. When you give equity to the right person, You don't just gain a great individual, you gain their whole ecosystem. This is a multiplier effect that only those who share early, deeply, and sincerely can trigger. Think of equity as how you choose extended co-founders. It's a declaration: we're jointly accountable for this future. Those with meaningful equity won't ask, "What does the boss want?" They'll ask, "What's best for the company?" They don't wait for orders, they act like owners. And in that kind of organization, you don't need tight management. It runs on intrinsic alignment. This is the model of a sustainable organization where everyone rows in the same direction. In summary, equity sharing is not just a financial decision, it's a philosophical one. It declares how you view people, as partners, not tools. It says you're building an empire through trust, not total control. And that creates a team that doesn't need supervision or pressure, yet remains steadfast, loyal, and unshakable. If you want to go far, share power. Build a family of co-owners, not a staff of employees. Part 9. Investors, the partner you can't fire. An investor is not just a source of capital. They're part of the decision-making structure. And most importantly, they are someone you cannot fire. Once they sit on the board, they have a voice that influences the destiny of your company. That's why you can't choose an investor solely based on the money they invest. You are choosing a companion for the most chaotic stretches, when everything is burning and assumptions collapse. How will they respond when that happens? That question matters more than any term sheet. There are two types of investors: those who want to multiply your vision, and those who just want to multiply their capital. The first understands you are building something that has no map. They don't panic when plans change. They ask, "What did we learn?" Not, "Why didn't it match projections?" The second does the opposite. They treat the startup like a stock. If it doesn't rise within a few quarters, they apply pressure, demand exits, or meddle with strategy. That can kill the magic forming quietly in the dark. A great investor calms you during a crisis. They're the one you can call at midnight to ask, "Should we cut the team or keep them?" They won't decide for you, but they'll help you see broader, stay sane, and not get consumed by emotion. In startups, your worst decisions come in your hardest moments. If an investor adds pressure instead of perspective, they'll knock you off course. Choose someone who helps you think better, not just move faster. One way to assess an investor: ask founders who have failed. Success often masks true character, but failure reveals real reactions. A good investor doesn't walk away when things collapse. They still listen, still support, and still see the human behind the company. They understand that failure is part of the creative journey, and in those moments, they help the founder stay grounded, recover, and begin again. Such an investor is worth more than money. When choosing investors, ask, have they ever built a company themselves? Boardroom experience doesn't compare to having fought real startup battles. Someone who's worried about payroll, losing customers, or a dying product truly understands your position. They won't speak in cliches. They won't send emails asking, "Where's this week's KPI?" while you're struggling to stay alive. They say little, but at the right time. They don't demand. They walk with you. They don't add pressure. They lift it. Understand this. Investors shape company culture. They influence how decisions are made, how you assess risk, and how you define success. If they only talk about growth, you'll optimize for the short term. If they talk about vision, you'll build a lasting foundation. What they say in meetings becomes a signal to the entire company. So choosing an investor is choosing the voice you'll hear in your head during sleepless nights. Don't let a stranger shape your inner voice. Some investors are valuable for their network, industry knowledge, or access to doors you can't open. But more important is their attitude toward risk and innovation. You are doing something never done before. Mistakes are inevitable. If they don't accept that, they'll break the creative system with short-term pressure. You need someone who says, "Keep going, I believe in you." Not someone who says, "Let's sell before we lose more." That's the difference between creation and collapse. In summary, an investor is a senior team member you can't fire. So choose them like you choose a co-founder. Don't overlook their character just because of a large check. Ask how they react when plans change. Ask their stance during crises. Look at how they've treated previous startups. If they truly inspire, provoke critical thinking, and maintain trust during your worst moments, that's someone to keep close. Money can be replaced. A good companion cannot. Part 10. Infrastructure-level breakthrough. Reconstructive thinking. There's an inconvenient truth few dare to say aloud. Most modern industries are running on outdated foundations. From education, healthcare, construction, to agriculture, our knowledge, technology, and operational infrastructure were designed for the previous century. Truly groundbreaking startups don't just build new products. They reconstruct the entire way humans interact with an industry. This isn't about improvement. It's about redesign. They don't ask, how do we get 20% better? They ask, how do we get 10 times better? Reconstructive thinking begins by rejecting the limitations society accepts as default. It requires founders to look beyond the product and into the entire ecosystem. Who's bearing hidden costs? Who's excluded? Who's paying for superficial efficiency? From there, they ask the root question. What solution can eliminate the issue entirely, not just patch it? This is how entirely new models emerge, where breakthroughs come not from acceleration, but from switching tracks. Infrastructure disruption isn't appealing to short-term investors. It takes time, is complex, and hard to measure. But once it succeeds, it builds moats so deep they're nearly impossible to copy. This is the playing field for the bold, the resilient, and the patient. Those who pursue what no one needs yet, but everyone will. If you're working on something small, think again. If you're fixing a broken system, ask, why not rebuild it from scratch? Every industry can be redefined. Modern technologies, from AI to 3D printing to new materials, are opening doors to break the limits of physics, economics, and society. You can build homes with half the materials, diagnose disease remotely using machine learning, educate millions without classrooms. But to achieve this, you must bet on the unproven. The future doesn't belong to the conservative. It's shaped by those who see the present as raw material to reprogram reality. Look at this planet as a problem to be resolved. 8 billion people deserve the lifestyle of the wealthiest 800 million, without destroying the environment or multiplying resource use tenfold. Sounds crazy? That's exactly why you must pursue it. Every startup you build should be evaluated by this standard. If it succeeds, will it advance society? If not, you're just recreating the status quo. But if yes, you are using technology to rewrite the blueprint of civilization. In conclusion, don't just launch a startup, re-architect the system. Don't just innovate on the surface, rewrite the core. Reconstructive thinking takes you further, deeper, and leaves a lasting impact. Those who dare to do what no one imagines become the ones the world must eventually adjust to. The future won't wait for you to adapt. The future is something you must design. And if you are brave, bold, and unyielding, you won't just succeed. You'll become the definition of success. There are things you cannot learn from books, only by stepping into the game and truly risking something of your own. Every choice you make, from the first person you hire to the reason you reject a piece of advice, is quietly writing the future you thought was random. There will come a time when you no longer need to ask what a startup is. Because when you look back, you'll realize you didn't just build a company. You shattered something old enough to make the world shift. And if, after this video, everything still feels ordinary to you, perhaps you were never ready for the extraordinary. Thank you for watching the whole video. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.